Hello, good evening, and welcome to a live stream. And today I have kind of a little bit of extra time, so we'll do a bit of a longer stream. That does mean we're kind of going to be doing two separate topics all in one. We're going to start off, as you can see on screen at the moment, with a couple of battle reports. I played in a Bolt Action Rattenkrieg event recently, so I'll go through the games that I played there. And just look at this board. Isn't this board absolutely beautiful? Love it. And once we finish that, well, I've got my Fireflies here that I've been painting on stream forever, so we can carry on with some of that. I actually might just until some people show up, because we are starting earlier than normal, I might just get on with some Fireflies actually. If I do some I've just been doing some basing while I've been setting up, so I can do a bit of that for a moment, and then we can look at the battle reports in a bit. We've got kind of plenty of time to deal with all that today. Nice, relaxed, and very warm day. It's a touch on the warm side over here in Old Blighty. Andre, good evening. How you doing? Yeah, I'm just saying that we'll get to the battle reports in probably 15 minutes. We might give it a little time because we've got loads of time today, and it usually takes an hour and a bit for me to go through three battle reports. Depending on how much I waffle about each particular game. So if we start that just before 7 and then probably be done by 8, and we can carry on painting the Fireflies. How about that? But yeah, it is warm today, and I'm absolutely fine with it. Not because I'm like, oh, look at me, super tough, I can handle any weather. No, it's because I deliberately acclimatized myself to the heat over the last couple of days. It usually takes much longer than, a day to acclimatize to this amount of heat. But rather than complaining about it and trying to drink as much ice cream as you can to keep yourself cool, do kind of the opposite. Force yourself over to acclimatize, and you'll be much more comfortable. It is still warm, it is still uncomfortable, but it's nowhere near as bad as some people are just complaining about. This little, in the middle of the, because this is Roberto Wells, in the middle of this base is part of the base topper piece that came with Roberta, and it doesn't really match my basing for my Americans, but it's kind of close enough. So I'm gonna paint those rocks up as if they were cobblestone, and then I'll dry brush all the rest of it as if it's the mud that I have on some of them. Andre says I'm right under the fan. I don't have a fan. I don't have a fan at all. At the moment, I have the curtains closed. And I know that it's a nice summer's day and people want to have the curtains open to let the light in and it all looks beautiful. But you know what sunlight is? Sunlight is hot. And if you keep your windows open, if you keep your curtains open, your whole house will become hot. So in winter, curtains open all day long, let that light in. In summer, keep them closed. Same thing with windows. Keep your windows closed during the day, because just warm air blowing in and out the house, yes, it's a nice breeze, but it's heating up your house, making it more uncomfortable later. So if you keep the window closed during the day, and then once it gets to the evening, you can open it to let the cooler night air in. Although, that's with British houses. And I know you're not in England, so that might the structure of your house might actually behave differently. So I should what's the word? I should mention that is based on the house that I am currently in. An old brick house. See, interestingly, this special edition American model also has a sculpted base, and yet it doesn't match Roberta's. Where's the other Roberta? Did she come with a molded base? She did, a smaller one. Now on this one, I've actually just added because all of this is my own texture roller that I use with everyone else, so this one's much easier to match because it's only around her feet that had texture. I need to choose a base room color for my Americans. I might just go with grey because I do cobblestones for them, but I'm considering doing the kind of military green because then everything in my American army is military green. Andre says, my living room is facing due south, sun all day, keep everything closed too. Absolutely. Well, we've got a few other people here. Welcome in, welcome in. I'll say again, I am just doing a little bit of painting before we talk about the games, just to let everyone in, because I usually stream at 7, and I don't want to start the main event before 7, just because kind of my regulars will be here roughly then. I mean, maybe Andre's early. A little bit of a consistency. I mean, we're on the wrong day as well because it's Tuesday today rather than Monday. We were supposed to play some games yesterday, but due to real life events a couple of people couldn't make it, which is fine. But due to us being total nerds, the few of us that did actually show up didn't play any games. We just chatted for several hours. Actually, quite a long time, which was nice. Kind of looking over some of the models, and oh yeah, we should totally get started on this game. And then 4 hours later, it's like, oh yeah, we haven't started this game yet. Andre says, Band of Brothers box is in the mail. Nice. Yeah. Which one did you get? I'm just looking up the Band of Brothers set. So 3rd edition, Hanomag M3 half track, and then is it 12 infantry on each side? German Grenadiers, that's a good kit, and the US Airborne D-Day. Oh, that's a lovely kit, that one. Yeah. Nice. That is a good starting point. That is a solid starting point. It comes with the rulebook. It comes with a few order dice and pin markers and things to get you started. Almost everyone uses dice as pin markers rather than the actual pin markers, but it's nice to have them. And it also gives you equal. It's actually, yeah, it's equal numbers for both sides. What we've seen a lot in some of the starter sets for Bolt Action over the years is asymmetry, and I'm in two minds about it because it is for a starter set. And should a starter set have a complete mirror matchup for the two factions in it? And yeah, I like I say, I'm in two minds about it. In one way, it starts you off with a nice, fair, even game. So if someone buys it and builds up both sides, gets their friend to play it, you know you've got a fair matchup because it's the same. However, when I teach people how to play Bolt Action, I don't mirror match. I make very different lists because I want to show people the different rules of the game. So I'm going to bring in, one side will have a mortar, usually a light mortar, but one side will have a mortar because I want to teach the mortar rules, and one player will have a sniper because I want to teach the sniper rules, and one will have one artillery piece, and I usually put one vehicle each side. Again, for balance, because if one side has a vehicle and the other one has anti-tank weapons, that's a very different way of playing. About £90, free delivery. Yep, nice. Did you buy it direct from Walmart, or did you? No, you bought it from a shop near you, didn't you? I remember you talking about it. Yeah. Yeah, like £90 for that. The two vehicles, they're what, 20 quid each usually. The infantry is usually like £7-8 a sprue, so that's 25-30 pounds plus the rulebook. Yeah, it's a good deal. And now you are hooked. Now that you've started, you can't get out. That was annoying. I just reached to wipe my brush and I've ended up with more water rather than less on this rock. But that's okay, I'll come back and fix it later. Amazon, right, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just going to stop messing with that because that's just causing me all manner of problems. Alright, so we are just about 1:45. So I'm going to put the models away just for a moment. And let's move over and start talking about the games. Because that's what this live stream is mainly about. Isn't that beautiful? I had to use this for the thumbnail picture because it's just such a lovely board. The buildings here is actually one of the guys in our group built and painted these. They're a Sarissa Precision set, and it says that you can build 3 buildings, and it's kind of expensive for 3 buildings, but when you actually look at it, if you build them as single story buildings or as ruins, you can actually stretch it out to 5, or if you have them single story, more than 5. But this guy's built them out as 2-story buildings, and it's nearly a whole board worth of buildings just in this one set. But the way he's painted them is actually with contrast paints rather than conventional paints. And I've seen so many people struggle with painting an MDF kit because it soaks in paint, and we're trying to like cover it in glue to seal it up, like spraying it 100 times to seal it up and to fill in the fibers of the wood. But with the contrast paint is supposed to soak in kind of and spread out over the surface of a model. And so when you put it on a very porous surface like MDF, it draws it in and it tints the entire surface really strongly. He did say in certain places he had to put a second coat on, but like the orange, the yellowy wall color, absolutely just one color, one coat, and that was it. For things like this pale purple, that's a single coat. You could have done a second coat there and make it a stronger look if that's what you wanted. I think the blue, he said he did 2 coats because he didn't like how it looked with one. And then I think on the orange for the brickwork at the bottom, I think he said he did 2 there as well. But a lot of it is just quick with contrast paint, single coat, no drama at all. And they look absolutely just beautiful straight away in one go. But that is my second game that I played, so we'll talk about that a little later. But before I talk about the first game, I want to talk about the actual event. Andre says, so many firsts for me, building models, batch painting, matching uniforms. You don't have to match uniforms that strongly. Batch painting, maybe, maybe not. I always liked painting one model at a time. Particularly when you're starting. If you just pick out one guy, regular rifleman, just go through the process on one just so you know what you're doing, and then you can work on a group of 5 or a group of 10. But yeah, you're going to have a great time. Yeah, building, painting, it's really enjoyable. Just nice. Sit down, relax, and just build stuff. Being creative is, for most people, a really, really enjoyable thing. Right, so let's move on to here. And this is the army that I've brought. And underneath my webcam here, there is some more stuff, but I'll talk about that in a moment. So the event is, or the event was a Rattenkrieg tournament, which I have played many, many times before. And not only have I played it many times before, I wrote the rules pack for this. However, the rules pack that I wrote a couple years back now has actually been changed quite a lot to this point. So it's a guy called Simon that runs our bolt action events, and I'm quite happy for him to take my idea and kind of run with it and modify it and do it the way he wants to do it. The biggest change that he's made is with vehicles. So in my original setup, I limited vehicles to be armor 7, but other than that, there was no limits. So you could have soft skins, open tops, light vehicles, or you can have armored cars at armor 7. You couldn't have a light tank, you couldn't have anything bigger. But Simon has now pushed this further and further to the point where not only do the armored vehicles, any type of vehicle doesn't count its order die, which I'll mention why that's important in a moment, but also the vehicles can't be anything more than a 6+. So you can't now have armored cars anymore, which effectively means that you can have your only transport vehicles. Now technically you can bring like a machine gun jeep or a machine gun bike or something like that, but at this point no one's bringing that kind of thing, and so this has got to the point where it is a purely infantry game mode. The rules pack is definitely favouring that, and that's what it was always intended for. So I'm fine with that change. It actually makes a lot of sense. I would like to see the odd armoured car floating around, but having it this way actually does work quite well. So the way that the rules pack works, the platoon structure is followed completely normally. The points limit is 750, maximum 750 points. So it's a relatively small points limit game, but the order dice cap, and there's all sorts of back and forth about order dice and people moaning and complaining about order dice and how many you can bring in the bolt action community. But for this rules pack, we are very specific about having a minimum, not a maximum, but a minimum of 12 order dice. So with a minimum of 12 order dice in a maximum of 750 points, what it means is that all of your infantry squads, or all of the units that you bring, end up being small squads, not a lot of upgrades, and you have to spread out like your order dice over all of those units without making it very expensive. And that's part of why we've changed the rules for vehicles, is because there was this kind of no one ever actually did it as far as I'm aware, but there were jokes about me saying, oh yeah, you just take 6 units and then 6 transport vehicles, because the 6 transport vehicles takes up 6 of your order dice, and then you can spend all of the rest of the points on those 6 units and make them really powerful. No one in our group actually we joke about it, but we don't actually play like that because we're relatively sensible and we like to, have fun rather than power gaming. But in this particular event, no one's bringing vehicles because of the changes in the rules, but we are spreading things out so that we can have that 12 units minimum. Some people were bringing like 13, 14, 15. I don't think I saw anyone higher than about 15. I have written lists that are in the 2022 kind of range, but I've never brought anything that. Most people are just going above the 12. Some people are hugging 12, some people are going 13, 14, 15. In my case, I have exactly 12 order dice. And we will notice, first thing up, my officer for my rifle platoon, he's broke. I dropped him off the table and snapped his ankles, unfortunately. But that was an easy repair. He's been glued back together and is back on the shelf now, so that's not an issue. But this is at the front, my rifle platoon. So I have 1, 2, 3 regular rifle squads. So that's 3 squads, 5 models in each, no upgrades, nothing fancy, no light machine gun. There's a couple models here throwing grenades, but they're not anti-tank grenades. They're just there for the cool models throwing anti-personnel grenades. So they have 50 points each. 5 regulars, no frills, no fancy stuff. And that is to bring down my average points, because I need to get, I think 750 divided by 12 is about 65 points ish that you can spend. So you want to bring a couple units below that 65 so that you can have a few units above that. It's everyone's doing that kind of thing. The next unit over here is a much more expensive squad, one of the most expensive squads around, in my list anyway. And this is the Paras, the Italian Paras, because the Italian Paras are the only unit that get to take a lot of submachine guns. So a lot of the Italian squads get to take 1 submachine gun on the NCO, but as far as I'm aware, the only option that can take like the full squad is one version of the Paras. But in this case, it's just 5 of them, so that's 5 veterans with submachine guns, and in this type of game mode, that is a very dangerous proposition. Extremely dangerous. And yeah, so I've kind of slightly skewed the list with a bunch of regular squads and then this slightly more expensive unit here. In the middle, finishing off my rifle platoon, is a sniper. So this is the scopeless snipers of the Italians, but using the standard sniper rules. And again, in a small game like Rattenkrieg, snipers become much more relevant. When you've got big squads and vehicles floating around, snipers are a very niche thing. They do still have their value. I think people do underrate them. But in a game like this, where people do have little squads and officers and weapons teams, there's a lot of weapons teams that you'll see in my battles today. That is definitely something that a sniper can make use of, or can target rather. So having a sniper in this type of game can be very useful. Up on the top left here is my engineers platoon, officer at the front, and then 2 squads of 5. But if you notice, they're slightly out of focus, but this model here and this model here, they have flamethrowers, which is why I've taken an engineers platoon. So between the Paras with loads of submachine guns and the 2 engineer squads with a flamethrower, I've got some really dangerous up close stuff. And so I wanted to make sure that I've got some longer range firepower so that they can get there. So if I just move my webcam for a moment. So on this side of the picture is an artillery platoon. So this is a captured Soviet medium artillery piece, and this is a gifted from the Germans medium artillery piece. So they're actually in rules terms identical. It's just the model. This one comes from Germany, this one comes from Russia, Soviet Union. I've got my donkey as one of the crew of my artillery piece. I love that. And then again, there's an officer for the artillery platoon there as well. So the idea of this list is that we've got the artillery and the sniper providing long-range firepower. We've got the regular infantry moving up, trying to take ground and kind of engaging with the enemy. And then I've got this element here with the 2 engineer squads and the paras that are going to try and sneak around, get up close, and use their close range weapons. That's kind of the balance of this list. So we've also almost got 3 elements. And in such a small points limits game, it feels odd to have 3 elements. It's usually, when you're playing small games, you just go with 1 or maybe 2 elements. But having 3 is doable, but we shall see if I can actually pull it off. So, my first game on the board that I absolutely despise playing on. I never do well here. So this battle mat, absolutely lovely, really good quality, nicely printed. All of the detail on it is great. We've got these roads in this grid. Unfortunately, because the roads are drawn on in a completely linear way, so this one is parallel with this board edge and this one is parallel with the long board edges, it significantly limits how you can lay this board out. And what you end up with is, just every time we have this battle mat out, we always have this big open ground in the middle. I've tried stacking up the toy trucks or bits of rubble or various other things in the road, which does help, but we actually couldn't find any. I didn't bring my trucks to this event, and we couldn't find the sandbags. We usually have a box of sandbags. We couldn't find it. So this time we've just got this open ground, completely open ground in the middle. And I measured it before the game and told my opponents so that we're on level playing field, like we both knew the same thing. From the front of this building to the front of this building is 12 inches. And that's horrible, because that means that going from cover, if you're like in this building on cover and you move 6 inches forwards, you are not within 6 inches of the building. And if you are beside the building, kind of in cover here from shots coming from that direction, for example, and you run 12 inches, again, you actually won't reach the building, you'll be just in front of it. Oh man, pushing up on this type of board sucks. And and the way I build my armies, I'm often building them to be very aggressive up close, because that's just how I like to play. But this type of board is totally anathema to that, and it doesn't let me play that way. I need to learn. I need to come up with ways that I can use. Either I need to be have more gunline units in my lists and less assault elements, or I need to learn how to actually treat this kind of board differently. But I haven't got that yet. Haven't got there yet. So this is the end of the first turn. So we've come on from the longboard edges. I've got my 2 artillery pieces set up as far in as I could reach. This one in the middle here is set up pointing at the central objective, and is actually positioned directly along this line, so that if anyone comes into this area here, I've got line of sight on them from this gun. Also, because we're treating all the buildings as ruins, they're clearly ruins, so anyone that comes into this building, I will also have line of sight from that gun. This gun, on the other hand, and I'm going to move my webcam. So this artillery piece here is actually not in as good a position because my opponent put an observer up here in this building. And he's got mortars, I think 3 mortars in this list. Horrible for indirect fire. But because of the observers there, I tucked my artillery piece just far enough back that the observer couldn't see it, which means I've actually only got like this slice across here of line of sight. So if any of these models come over here, they're going to cross the line of sight and I'm going to take them out. Or anyone that goes into the end of this building is also going to have going to be within line of sight, so I'm going to be able to see them. The one thing I'm noticing at this point straight away is, even though I brought 2 artillery pieces, I did not bring any observers, not one. And so I need direct line of sight. I need to fire through open sights for both of these howitzers. So my infantry is stacked up, 1 here with an officer, 1 here with an officer, and then 1 regular squad with the officer and also one of my engineer squads. And then on this side of the board, all stacked up here, there's another engineer squad and my paras as well. Hey Raynick, how you doing? You got here just in time. We're talking about, I'm just starting on the first turn of game 1. So I've got artillery at the back covering the open grounds, the bits of open ground that I can see. I've got a regular infantry squad moving into each of these buildings, which is a little spread out. But then I've got my close assault stuff over here. So I've got engineers and paras in this right here, and they're not going into this building. They're going to go around the building so that they get 12 inches run. And then the other one here, flamethrower engineer here, has, again, not going into the building because that slowed them down. They're going to have to run across open ground. I'm going to just have to time this as best I can. Oh, Raynick, you got to play on this twice? Yuck. I was just saying how much I hate this board. I have a plan to fix it, but it means a lot of modelling work on my behalf to make some extra bits of terrain for it, but I'll do that at some point. That's not for today. So what we can see in this photograph is we can see that my opponent has a very different list from mine. So rather than going for a bunch of regular squads that are 5 men and a few veteran squads that are 5 men, and then I'm spending a lot of points on artillery and I'm spending a lot of points on those 2 flamethrowers, what my opponent has done is he's gone with a much more regular infantry kind of mob, and so his squad's ending up bigger. He's got squads of 6, 7, 8. I think he had 1 squad of 9, but I'm not 100%. But then he does have his officers and he does have his mortars. So again, just going to shuffle my webcam. We can see one of the mortars up here in this corner, and we can just about see one model of one of the mortars right here as well. So very interestingly, straight away in turn 2, so as soon as we're able to get to the middle of the board, my opponent just starts rushing out into the open ground. And I'm like, well, all right then, if that's how we're going to play it, that's how we'll play it. That's kind of solves my issue of being usually being the first person to move into open ground and having a very difficult time of it. If my opponent's going to come out into open ground, we can just have a proper fight in the middle and be on even playing field. So I'm appreciating that. So I bring up one of my engineer squads. This is right at the end of turn 2. I'm trying to move them last so that my opponent has the least amount of time to shoot at them before at the beginning of the next turn I can give them another order die and move them up. However, unfortunately, in this case that does not work. But I have moved the flamethrower team, sorry, the engineer with the flamethrower here. Flamethrower is well out of range, but the rifles do get a shot. So 1 pin here is from the rifles. I think the other pin is from one of my officers, which is who is in this building here. And we can also see on this side of the board just a big mob of regular soldiers moving up as well. So things didn't go well for my engineers. That squad of Americans has advanced up, and I'm pretty sure there's a squad in this building that fired on them, and someone else fired on them, and then this squad moved up. Didn't charge. Could easily have charged and done a lot of damage, but instead moved up and shot at point blank. Can't quite clearly see it there, but that is my pin markers, and there are 4 pin markers there. Yay. Ouch. But flamethrower is still alive, which is nice. So, the full board at the... I think this is at the end of turn 2. Middle building. I used to have an officer here. The officer's now run over here. I used to have a squad here. The squad is now completely wiped out, because one of the mortars rolled a 6 to hit. First try, line of sight from the observer. I think I moved into the building, so there's actually plenty of line of sight. Dropped a mortar, bang, rolled a 6, and got the whole squad. Brutal. Over here, from the observer that's in this building, there is line of sight just sneaking through here, and I thought he might shoot my officer, but no, he shot the infantry squad that was here with the other mortar that was behind this building, and again got a 6. Didn't wipe the squad. I think 4 out of 5 though, so it was pretty devastating. So I'm not having a great time. My artillery is in position, but actually has no one to shoot at. So they're kind of wasting their ability. They're just not having anyone to shoot at. To an extent, they are limiting how my opponent can play, because my opponent's not moving into where the artillery can shoot. But they're also... the artillery's not shooting. So that's kind of maybe a plus, maybe a minus. But with 2 of my rifle squads gone straight away, and playing on a board that I'm not very good at anyway, this is definitely looking difficult. On the furthest to the right board edge, if you see, there's a black tape, so that's the edge of our gaming area here. Up in the building is a squad of Marines. At the back is a regular squad. And here, ignore the bazooka, that's a pretend BAR, because obviously there's models being assembled and painted. It's fine. We were clear. My opponent was clear about that at the beginning of the game, so I'm happy to let that kind of proxy model exist. But I've got a regular rifle squad and an officer in this building. You can see they've ended up with 4 pins because they're getting pummeled. This squad and this squad shooting them over and over again. There's basically nothing I can do at this point. That squad is toast. So the middle of the board, the right of the board, and almost all the way up to the left side of the board, I have having a terrible time of it. I do have my artillery still, and I do have my veterans on the engineers on the left hand side, so I'm essentially reliant on that now on the left side of the board to achieve anything. I did give it a go with trying to take out this. Rainick says the B in BAR stands for bazooka. Absolutely right. It was a special rocket that instead of one big rocket, it's just a bunch of 30-06 mini rockets. Yeah, let's go with that. It's fine. Like, our group is very kind of welcoming of newer players, and so as people are building and painting, as long as you're clear about what the models are with your opponent, as long as your opponent understands what everything is, and so long as you follow the rules, we don't mind. We'll allow little. If you come and your whole army is like every model is something else, then that's not okay. But if it's like 1 or 2 things in the army, that's fine. We'll let you have it. I think it was just because he didn't have enough infantry models. He was using every infantry model he had, and so it was like just pulling everything out to use. But yeah, on this side of the board, I try and pummel down this squad, target everything I can at it, my officers with the submachine guns, and then this rifle squad jumps out to shoot them point blank. My idea was that if I jump out at the end of one turn and then charge them in the next turn, there was a chance that I could win a combat and see them off. That didn't happen. unfortunately. So the right hand flank for me is completely lost. And so I am now focused completely on my left flank. I have a full squad of engineers, 5 models and a flamethrower still. I've got this essentially now a flamethrower team with loads of pins. I've also got a sniper up here with also loads of pins, so he becomes absolutely useless. But my paras now become my main unit. So I'm kind of trying to be very careful with my engineers and using them at the best moment. But my paras are going to be my swinging a hammer around the room unit. So you can see here, my opponent's bringing up a second squad, and I'm outnumbered massively over here, but we have the same number of units. So the number of pins we can put in each other is the same. And so I need to bring the balance back by getting up and punching really hard, really quickly. So because my right flank has completely collapsed now, nothing left over there, my opponent is able to bring all of this stuff over to the center of the board where the objective is. And all of these models ran in front of that howitzer that's on the right hand side. I got 2 shots off with that howitzer in ambush, and they both missed. And then the howitzer that's down here, there's a howitzer on this street that can see them here, also shot. That howitzer also managed to get 2 shots off in this game. The second shot missed, so that's 3 out of 4 misses. 4 pluses and 3 out of 4 misses. Fantastic. But the shot that didn't hit any of these big squads. It just hit a little weapons team, and so I think it took out 2 models. Yay. So my artillery has absolutely failed miserably, and my infantry, my regular infantry, is now gone. There is none of them left on the board. These guys, however, these guys are pulling their weight. So this is the engineer squad that was cut down to 2 models, essentially a flamethrower team, and they've got 4 pins. And I just thought, I have to try. If I rally, I'm going to get gunned down because there's 2 models left. They're not going to survive. But if I push through an advance order, there is a chance that I get a successful order test, and there is a chance I can get hit out of it. And that is exactly what happened. So with 4 pins and no officer nearby, they pass their leadership test, run over here, or advance over here, sorry, and they get this squad. And this is the big squad that's come down from here, and they wipe them out. They do a bunch of casualties, and then they fail the leadership test. Flamethrowers absolutely doing their job. Here is what's left of my paras. There is 1 model over here. They ran up close and shot up the squad that's in this building, and then they charged and won the combat and saw off the enemy. So one of my flamethrower teams has seen off an entire squad, and my paras have also seen off an entire squad. And given my opponents using these big squads, that's really useful for me. The problem over here is that I now still have this other big squad. This is basically the last unit that my opponent hasn't brought in yet, and I've got 1 model to stop them from getting through to the objective, which is not enough. However, this is also late enough in the game that actually them slowing down to clear off this 1 model is enough to stop them from getting to the center of the board. So here is my other engineer squad, and I rolled so poorly here, and I'm so sad about it, because what I could have done, what nearly happened, so this engineer squad has come from the building just behind the camera here, and they've moved up right onto the objective. Flamethrowers well within 6 inches, torched up this squad in open ground, no cover anyway because it's a flamethrower. I think I got I rolled the d6 for the number of hits, and I think I just got 2. No, I think in this case I actually missed with the flamethrower. I think the flamethrower missed this one. So the flamethrower that's got 4 pins hit. The flamethrower that has no pins missed. But unfortunately, in the last turn of the game, my opponent ganged up on this squad and finished them off. And the centre of the board went to my opponent. And that was the end of the game. So very well played from my opponent's perspective. Lots of very aggressive plays, and saw the advantage of using the larger squad sizes that he had versus my smaller squad sizes, and absolutely pressed that advantage. The middle ground being so open is difficult for both of us, but the way he played made it more of a problem for me. And again, this is something I've said many times before, mutual support between squads, and then my opponent managed that. I think we both did a fairly good job of that. My regular infantry being spread out so thin meant that they just disappeared, but my engineers and paras did that. They stuck together and looked after each other. That's why they did as well as they did. But my opponent just had two blobs, one on the left, one on the right. Ignored that. Essentially, this factory building in the middle of my opponent's board edge, completely ignored that and went round the two sides of it. And so, yeah, very well played on my opponent's behalf. And game 2. And this is on, just look at that board. Isn't that such a nice looking board? We've got this nice little country lane. We've got all these little cottages that have been bombed out, unfortunately. We've got, excuse me, little farmer's field up at the top. We've got some craters around. This here, this is actually not what you expect, because you think that that is the ruined farmhouse from Warlord Games. It is not. That is a custom scratch build out of sprue. Just stacked up sprue with some milliput on the outside and some sticks to be the rafters. It looks absolutely great. I don't have any pictures of it directly, but I have some pictures where we see it a little better than this. So we'll have a look at that as we get more into this game. So in this case, we have 3 objectives, one in the center of the board and then one on each side. So that's one there, that's one there, and that's one in the middle. The rules of this mission say that at the beginning of each turn, the objectives are going to move a little bit randomly, but that didn't really have any effect. As soon as a unit captures one, they stop moving and they move with the squad, and that's actually much more important. So you move an infantry squad up, grab the objective, and then you can move it. You can move the objective to some safe place, like behind a wall, behind a building, somewhere where you can defend it. Yuli, hi, how you doing? Welcome in. That board looks great. Yeah, I love this board. This was a beautiful one to play on. So what we have in tactical terms is, again, we have a big road in the middle of the board that is completely open ground. There's no rubble. There's not even tank traps or dragon's teeth or check hedgehogs. There's no sandbags. Absolutely nothing. You can see from this corner all of the way down to this corner. If you put a model on each corner, they've got line of sight on each other. But unlike the first board that I played on, where it was across the center of the board in a kind of parallel to the board edges, this is diagonally corner to corner, and that makes everything better for me. So I'm going to sort of split my army into 1/3 and 2/3, and I'm going to push 2/3 of my army up here towards the center, through this building, through this cover, and I'm going to try and take this one and this one in that one push. And I'm going to send 1/3 of my force around this side and try and take this one. Yudi says, can't stay for the entire stream. Hope your tournament went well. I had a lot of fun. So I definitely wanted to put one of the howitzers facing down the road, because that was just, I've got 2 artillery pieces and I've got a big line of line of sight down the middle of the board. I could not waste that. However, I didn't want to expend both of my artillery pieces on that, because that's now kind of pushing too far. That's kind of eggs in one basket kind of thing. And so I did put one. Do I have a picture of my deployment? Not really. So I put one just over here, so it's got line of sight through the kind of behind these buildings, and I put one here so that it's got line of sight down the road. Over here on the left, the craters, both this one and this one, we treat these as open ground if you're not in them. So let's say you have a unit here and a unit here, they can see each other as if that's open ground, because the craters are like blown into the ground. They're below the surface of the ground. However, if you get a squad into them, they are now get heavy cover. So if you're in it, you have heavy cover, but you can shoot over it as if it's open ground. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to get my sniper as close as I could so that I've got plenty of line of sight over here. Now realistically, my sniper didn't do much this game, but you probably will see my sniper popping up over here in some of the pictures. Clove, hey, how you doing? What's up? Yeah. So here's looking through some of my deployments. Clove says, what did I miss out? You've missed the entire first game, but this is now, I'm just talking through the very start of game 2. So this is one of my regular squads. This is another one of my regular squads moving up into the buildings. And very quickly, this is why I took the picture so early, my opponent has put a ZiS-3, so playing as the Soviets, he's put an artillery piece right where I said that that line of sight was able to be drawn. So he's got now a howitzer pointed all the way down the road before I get my howitzer in place to do the opposite. Go for it painting says hello. Hi, how you doing? Clove, man, doing good. That's good to hear. Doing some editing, gathering the lore on the Fireflies. Ooh, yeah, I definitely want to hear more about the Fireflies. Nice. Lore videos. Good to see. Good to see. Where was I? Yeah. So my opponent's put this howitzer in exactly the opposite place to where I was putting my howitzer. But I'm glad I didn't put them both there, because that's kind of the obvious thing that I could have done, is put both artillery pieces on the big open ground. I'm going to put one there. I'm still going to stick to my plan of putting one on the road, but my other one, I really now need to put it as far forward here to get it behind this building so that I'm out of line of sight there. My opponent does have an observer, but I have a sniper, so my opponent very quickly did not have an observer, which means the ZiS-3 was reliant on line of sight. So here's some more deployment. I've got another squad here. My opponent's got, I think it was a sniper or a machine gun team here. Oh, sorry, yeah, machine gun team here. And there, okay, I think this is now the full deployment. So you can see I've got my sniper here, tucked behind this cover, not in it, so that they can move a bit further if they need to. Got my Paras here. I've got, is that flamethrower? It is not. So I've got engineer squad here, that's my flamethrower. And then I've got an engineer squad here, that's my flamethrower. And then it's regular squad, regular squad, regular squad. This artillery piece is looking down the road. This artillery piece is looking behind these buildings and is not in line of sight of the enemy's ZiS-3. So this one is the safer one, this one's the more aggressive one. However, as soon as my opponents brought in all of their regular infantry here, they've got a sniper and several more machine gun teams. They really like the machine gun teams. Fair, absolutely fair, because they did quite well in this game. They also have a squad of submachine gun wielding veterans, just like I have here. The difference is that their guys are on this little light truck, and I saw an opportunity right there. My opponent drove this truck in and plonked it right in front of the ZiS-3. So if I can take out the observer, and if I can blow up that truck and create a wreck in the middle of the road blocking line of sight of the ZiS-3, that means I don't have to actually kill the ZiS-3, because it's now useless, because it can't see any of my my units. Without the observer, it can't indirect, and without direct line of sight, it can't fire direct. But even though I try through so many different ways, I throw loads of rifle shots at it, and I even use the howitzer shot at it. Rather than shooting howitzer at howitzer, which should have been what I should have done, I shot the howitzer at the vehicle, hoping all I needed was a 4+ hit, and I didn't get it. I put a pin on it. I think I put 2 pins on it from the rifles, but didn't manage to kill it, unfortunately. And so it did manage to drive out of the way, and so I did have to deal with the Zizri. Andre says, Clove, what's your channel name? If you click on his name in chat, you should be able to go to his channel. I think you should be able to do that. So this is more shots of the deployment. So we've got my artillery over here looking down this way. My squads here are behind the building at the moment, but they're going to be moving up. Annoyingly, that is an enemy sniper, so these guys have to be very careful about moving up. And otherwise, this is all just as we've just spoken about. And here is my opponent's army. Like I said, veteran squad in a truck. We've got some inexperienced green unit here. My opponent really liked the idea of the opportunity for a green unit to go up to regular. So had a go at that. We've got then a massive light machine gun squad. So 12 models and 2 light machine guns. Commissar. Machine gun team, and sniper, like we've mentioned. Oh yeah, here, anti-tank rifle. The enemy anti-tank rifle really liked the idea of taking out my sniper. Didn't manage it, and it was constantly had their line of sight blocked by friendly to them infantry. Yeah, unfortunately not very effective, that anti-tank rifle. Well, fortunate for me. So this is now moving into the second turn. So already in turn 2, my opponent now has one of the objectives. And that truck has moved out of the way, so the Ziz has line of sight. At the moment, direct fire is blocked by friendlies, but it still can shoot indirectly. So I am still very much at risk from that. I've moved a lot of my stuff into cover here, and we'll see down here in a moment that I've done the same down here. So up in here on the top floor is a regular rifle squad, because I don't think I should be pushing up with them. So I've moved them up here, partially to attract as much firepower as possible from my enemy, because if they're shooting at the regular squad, they're not shooting at my important veterans. But also, if they're up there, they've got line of sight on absolutely everyone here, and that gives them the best opportunity to assist the veterans. But the paras and the engineers here are going to push up, and they're going to try and take this objective from my opponent. So this is the right flank. So I do have my howitzer here, and I shoot the howitzer last so I can move my infantry out of the way, so I do get a direct line of sight shot. But because of this kind of pile of rocks, this little hill, and this building here, there's actually only a very thin line of sight through here. And so if I move these two, I can actually move across the line of sight and end up behind cover, which means I've still got enough space to shoot the howitzer at the enemy, but everyone here is out of line of sight. This squad here moves up into the building, but they are firing directly in the same way that the squad up here in the top here are firing. But the other regular squad has moved up behind this hedge, and I almost put them there as an afterthought, but they've got a very clear line on that central objective. But there's only 5 models here, and they're up against big enemy squads. That's a squad of 12 with 2 light machine guns. That's a squad of, I think, 10. They're inexperienced, so they're getting -1 to hit, but that's still 10 rifle shots versus 5 models. They are fragile. I've definitely chosen a list. The way I've written my list is I've got some very fragile units in here, and it is partly what the Rattenkrieg rule set is for. It is deliberately to make units like this, weapons teams and small rifle squads, and then having a few expensive items like howitzers, like my paras, like the flamethrowers. But in a situation like this, are these guys going to be able to do anything? Maybe. Maybe. We shall see. So my opponent was definitely playing in a way that I like to see, just kind of like the American player did in the first game, and is pushing up hard. And here he sent a single model officer up to take this objective, because if he can grab that and move it back, again, these objectives are movable, if you can grab that and move it behind this building, it's highly unlikely I'm going to be able to get to it by the end of the game, because he can just keep moving it further and further away. Thankfully, I do have a squad up here, and they shot him down. But that was a bit hectic. The enemy veterans on the right-hand side were a lot more difficult to get rid of. They still have the objective. I've cut them from 6 models down to 2, and you can see how many pins. I'm trying hard. I'm really trying hard. I shot with the rifle squad first. Then I moved up the paras and shot them, and you can see paras first, and I can see there's only 1 para left, so they've suffered as well. Then I moved my officer, and then I moved the flamethrower last. And this is important for the way that the flamethrower works, because so long as the flamethrower hits, the enemy will always take a leadership test, no matter how many models are taken out. So the more pins that you can put on that squad before you move the flamethrower, the more likely you are to clear out that squad with the leadership test, even if you haven't actually wiped out the squad. You're just going to scare them with all the rifle fire, and then move up with the flamethrower, and the squad's like, nope, we're not dealing with this, we're out. If you hit. The flamethrower did not hit. And then ran out of fuel. But it's still 5 veterans with 4 rifles, so it's not nothing. It's just going to be that fight now is very difficult, because I've got to get rid of these 2 veterans, move on to the objective, and then move away, and there is this whole line of angry Soviet soldiers just barreling in, and I am not convinced that I've got enough time, because I need to clear off these 2 so that the objective is freed up, because at the moment it's owned by that squad. So I need to get rid of those 2, move on to it so that I can claim it, and then move it away so that the opponent's massive horde doesn't just take it back. And that is a lot to ask. So back to the right-hand side. On the right-hand side objective, my officer is now on that objective. Right here. And here, underneath my it's always underneath my webcam. And right there is the enemy sniper, just staring right at him. And also a machine gun, staring right at him. So this was the second to last order die that I used in this turn. So I moved everything else first. I've moved the engineers up to here. I've done everything on the other side, tried to clear out that veteran squad, didn't manage it. I've even moved one of my other officers over here, because I'm pretty sure this guy's going to get taken out, so I want another model to come on and take that objective. But the last 2 order dice of this turn were to move this officer onto that objective, and then something that doesn't happen for... I just went crazy with pictures, I think. I think we can go over these fairly quickly, because it's just showing different angles on what I've already talked about. So this is the veteran squad, the enemy veteran squad with the objective, and this line of Russians coming down on me. I need to get rid of these 2 and take the objective and move it away, and there's an enemy squad right here. It's just a lot to ask. Here again is my officer on the objective with the engineer squad in front, and the rifle squad up here. Rifle squad does have line of sight on both the sniper and the machine gun team, so that is a bit of support that I can give there. So here, the very end of this turn, My opponent with those 2 veterans charged my one. No, I charged him. So my 1 veteran with 1 pin charged his 2 veterans. And I just thought, so long as I can get 1 of them, then I've halved the number of models in that squad. And that means it's easier for the rest of my units to come along and take him out. However, I won the combat, and that means that they all flee and I take the objective, which is great. However, there is still an absolute bundle of enemy models within 6 inches. Like, it doesn't necessarily look it here, but that we measured it at the end of the game. That is 6 inches. So that's a charge. This is a move to here, and a dozen. What was that? A dozen plus 2 light machine gun shots. Lots and lots of firepower at point blank range. Can absolutely shred all of this. Especially this guy, because he's now not in cover. The engineers are behind this little bush, but this guy's not in cover at all. Here we go. This is what I wanted to mention earlier. So the last order die of that turn, and in fact this is a picture from the beginning of the next turn because I picked up all the order dice. This rifle squad were behind the bush here. And what I've done, it's a little bit gamey. It's a little bit gamey. But I've moved them into position so that they're touching this objective within 3 inches. So they're within 3 inches of that, which means this squad now owns this objective. But if you notice, I've kind of snaked them a bit. The closest model actually went to here, and the second closest model went to here, because these are the 2 important ones. Because this guy is within 6 inches of my officer. And this was the second to last, and this was the last order die of this turn. And so, at the beginning of the next turn, if I can get the first order die, if only I can get the first order die, I can order the officer to run, and I can snap to action and order these guys to run. With 2 objectives coming along with. Andre says, are the guys in the crater considered impartial cover? So the way we treat terrain like this is we actually take the outline of it as cover. So that you can either do it with what's called true line of sight, where like these guys wouldn't be in cover because they're not actually in a crater, and these guys would be. But we make it, we kind of simplify it, and we just say that if your models are in a building, even if you're in this open part of a building, then you're in the building. If you're like on the edge of this here, then you're in the rocks, and so you're in cover. And it's the same with this one. If you're anywhere touching the base of the terrain piece, then you're in that terrain piece and you get the benefit of cover. So this whole unit here, this is the green squad. This whole unit are in heavy cover at this point. They've also got an officer nearby. The commissar's gone. The sniper dealt with the commissar, but the enemy sniper is still there, and the enemy sniper still has line of sight on this officer. So if I do get the first order die, I've got 2 objectives back in my my deployment zone, and I'm really in a good position. But if I don't, that sniper's going to take out my officer, and all of this is just going to bundle down and shoot down this squad and mob up on that 1 power on the other side. Yeah, and this is the situation over on the left. This is kind of the turning point for this game. It's whatever happens at the beginning of the next turn decides this game. My opponent's kind of just moving up in this, like just this Soviet wave just coming up with all of these models. Once they get to the fight, I have got nothing. I do not have enough to fight them off. So I need to drag the objectives off as fast as possible. The charges, the early charges from my opponent, so the veterans in the truck and the officer that ran onto the objectives, I've seen those off. I've seen both of those off. But now, I need to not be seen off in return, which is what my opponent is trying to do. So I get the first order die, and I snap to action that squad. The squad goes behind cover, behind this wall section, and my officer gets behind this building, out of line of sight of the sniper. I wasn't sure if I was going to get the officer out of line of sight. And so I was actually planning for this squad. If the officer got hit, this squad would jump down and retake the objective. So I had options here. Or the artillery crew can actually move up to 6 inches because this is a medium gun. So they could have moved 6 inches and been within 3 inches of the objective. So now that that objective is there, I own this. This is mine. That's fine. This, again, I can move this artillery piece to be on there. But this wall section here basically protected them for the rest of the game. Getting that one order die first in this one turn. And I would like to point out, for the people who are like, this is why having more order dice than your opponent is an advantage. My opponent had more order dice than me at this point. So I've won this game by pulling that order die first. It's actually my opponent who drew it. But my opponent had more order dice, had 2 more order dice in the bag at this turn of the game. So that has pretty much sealed it for me. However, my opponent then gets an order die, and he also snaps to action with the light machine gun squad, the officer, and then also the other regular squad on the other side. Yeah, everything collapses on this side. It just disappears in a hail of gunfire. In fact, there you go. The para is gone. The engineer squad is gone. This rifle squad up here only has 3 models left. I think my opponent does shoot some more at them and wipes them out as well. This objective is solidly in the hands of my opponent, but I've already got 2 of them all the way on my side of the board. I can't reach this anymore. I've got nothing that can reach this. So that is solidly my opponent's, but that is 2-1 for the objectives, which means I have won. I did try at the end. I jumped out with this squad. This is the flamethrower engineers that were behind this building. Now that the objectives moved away, they're free to do whatever they want. And so they jumped out and torched the green squad, who ran away. But it's too little too late, and I was never getting to that objective. 3-0 would have been fun, but 2-1 is still a win for me. And this is now just some of the aftermath pictures. We did play out the rest of this turn, just because we had the time to, but there was nothing either of us could do to change the effect. Sniper shot at this squad. Yeah, I said the flamethrower moved up. The machine guns actually did shoot at this squad, but didn't kill anyone, I think. And yeah, that is the game. So, any questions or mentions before we move on to the last game of today, of the event? Yeah. It's now late enough in the evening that it's starting to cool down. The sun hasn't gone down quite yet, so I'm not opening the curtains up to let the heat out. But it's yeah, I'm okay. I've acclimatized to the heat, and I'm all right. So I've got a loss and a win so far in this event, which puts me kind of in the middle of the pack. With that's 4 points. So a win is 1, a win is 3 points, a draw is 1 point, and a loss is 0 points. So it actually gives me 3 points. Sorry. So a win and a loss is better than 2 draws. Andre says, "Move along, good sir." Don't call me sir. I work for a living. But yes, let's talk about Game 3. So I wanted to leave a bit of a pause there before I talk about Game 3, because I do have to mention something about... Yeah, Rainick. These buildings are Sarissa Precision and painted with contrast paints, which has done a lovely job on them. They are beautiful. This whole board is absolutely beautiful. Right. So the last game, I do have to mention something that's negative straight up front, and that is that my opponent in this game, it was caught being very unsporting. I won't go into details. I'm not going to mention who they are. The organizer of our events is aware of this person and what they've been doing. And during this game, I directly witnessed what he was doing. But even with that unsportsman behaviour, it didn't actually affect this game. I was keeping track of it. I was paying very much attention to it. I was watching him do it, and I passed that information on to our event organizer. But I don't want to go into too much detail about that. But I just want to make sure that that is said, because that did happen during this game. So this is our lovely terrain, the Japanese terrain. This is one of my favorite boards. All of these buildings. I actually don't know if these are Sarissa or if these are TT Combat. There might be TT Combat, but I'm not sure. They're absolutely beautiful, and we've got all of these. I think this is aquarium plants that are built up out on these little bases, and it just looks lovely. I actually managed to build this board, and I always do this. Again, it's like I said in that first game, having that road as a linear obstacle across the middle of the board makes it very difficult to play. In that second game, we had the road down diagonally, which is much more fun. So in this case, rather than having open ground, we've actually got the cover in this stripe diagonally across the board, which is sort of the opposite of the second game. But because it's diagonal, it's still fun to play along. And I'm actually going to play this in a different way to how I played that second game. So the idea here, I've got a building here on the right hand side, and then I've got this line of light cover through the middle. And I agreed with the opponent that this is all open. So if this is all light cover. So if you're shooting through it, you've got line of sight. Everyone has line of sight through this all the time. Only the buildings are blocking line of sight. But if you're shooting through it, the target unit is getting light cover all the time. So the first few turns of the game, as we're on opposite sides of this, we're all shooting. We might get a few pins, but with light cover, it's going to reduce the damage of it. But my plan was I'm going to move some assault units up here behind this building so that I can springboard off of that and go kind of long around this end of the bridge. So I'm going to go there with that. And then I'm going to mob up everything else in the middle here. And I'm going to kind of aim right up here across the middle of the board. And I'm going to make a firing line here. And depending on what my opponent does, I can either push out this way, I can either hook back this way if they try and assault here, or I can push on this way and deal with whatever my opponent brings. Squidfist, hi, how you doing? Nice to see you. Yeah, Andre says nice board. Yeah, I love this terrain. Between this new board, because these buildings are new to us now. This is beautiful. Where we've had the craters, we've had the little walls, and we've had the roads for a while, and we've had all of this for a while. This is just, I'm really liking how the terrain is looking. As soon as we fix that first board so that it actually plays better, I'll be dead chuffed with the terrain that we have. Chloe says, "Now I wanted to hear the details." I'd rather not go into the details just because of I don't like to go into the drama of things. So here is me set up for the first turn. So I've already got one of my engineer squads pushing up to that building, like I said. My opponent also has a squad moving down from the top. I've got a big mob of everything here moving up into the middle. And I've got one of my howitzers set up here, which actually has a fairly large field of view, including, importantly, this building. And my opponent put a few units in this building at the very beginning, and so I started lobbing indirect shots at it. Because if I shoot direct, it's going to be a 4+, and they get cover. If I shoot indirect, I have to zero in, but once I zero in on that, it's a 2+ to hit, and they don't get cover. So we measure it out, and that is just over the 36-inch minimum distance. And so I start lobbing indirect. Now I don't get hit straight away, but we'll come back to that later on. You can just see in this corner here, I did get my howitzer just tucked around this piece of terrain. So the howitzer itself can't move through terrain. We measured it out. We measured out the table again to make sure that the tape was in the right place. And actually we measured that to be the 4 foot of the board. so I was allowed to go here. And this is in a perfect position because this has got this whole line of sight down my opponent's front. This is just perfect position. However, just like in the first 2 games, my howitzers are obviously loaded with training ammunition, signaling ammunition perhaps, because they don't kill anything. So here's some of my opponent's deployment. We've got a ED-SKaR heavy machine gun up in the tower, which is perfect place for it. Heavy mortar. We've actually got 2 heavy mortars because there's another one back here. And then we've got these, I think, Siberian veteran squads for all of the infantry. And given that they're kind of mid-sized squads, that's pretty dangerous. So in my list, I focused my points on the 2 howitzers. That's 200 points, 100 points each. Very expensive. And the flamethrowers, which are 30 points each. Again, not quite as expensive, but expensive to do. Whereas my opponent, the only really single expensive thing here is the heavy machine gun. And he's just spread out lots of upgrades over the whole army. So the Siberian veterans, upgrading the mortars to heavy mortars, that kind of thing. He hasn't got a single, like I have, I've got my single point of expense with the howitzers, whereas my opponent doesn't have that. It's much more evenly balanced. And I think in future Rattenkrieg events, I'm probably going to go more down that line. Because in the first game, the American player kind of went along that train of thought and did very well. And the opponent here has also gone along those lines. And I've seen other players as well go for a more balanced list rather than a skewed list, and kind of doing well with that. So here is the right hand side. I've moved up behind the building with the para squad and the engineer squad, and I've got one of my officers here to look after them. And my opponent is just running 12 inches, 12 inches. He's already at the middle of the board. Or I think this is just before he gets to the middle of the board, but he gets to the middle of the board over here. And that leaves me with enough distance that I can move through the building, or around the building this way and around the building this way. My officer went into the building first and shot. Paras went up here and shot. And then the flamethrower last comes in and shoots, does more pins, sees off this squad. They fail their leadership test and off they go. So right hand side, my assault squad's really doing nicely. There is an officer here. He's looking a bit scared because he's by himself now. So on the center of the board, I'm mobbing up on the middle like I was trying to. My opponent has a squad up here that I did throw a few shots at, but they kept going down, which I think is an interesting choice. Because rather than moving them up and getting them into the fight, by putting them down far away, it's distracting me. And so I'm putting these long-range shots over here, which are not effective. So shooting rifle shots and an opponent that's getting a cover save, it's just not getting very far, especially as on a veteran squad. And so I decide to actually focus my attention on the stuff that's here. This is this is not a Siberian veteran squad. This is a tank riders squad. You may find it strange that you bring a tank riders squad without a tank, but firstly, there's no rule saying you can't. Secondly, I've done this before. If you look at the last Rattenkrieg, I took tank riders without a tank. But also, the way that Rattenkrieg was thought up, it's about all of these scrappy little bits and remnants of squads and weapons teams that have been bundled together with just whatever you've got, send them at the enemy. And so having an engineers squad or a tank rider squad with the body armor that the tank has been blown up last week, but they're still in the fight, it's absolutely fine. So that's not an issue. But these guys, veteran with the armor, they are so difficult to deal with. And I know, because I use them all the time when I play as the Soviets. And so what I start doing is I use absolutely everything against them. Because either I ignore them and deal with everything else, or I focus them down. And I chose to focus them down. So I moved my officer from this side and shot. I moved my paras up and shot. I moved the officer here I think he was actually out of range, but I moved him next turn to shoot. I shot the rifle squad here, and then finally I moved this flamethrower engineer squad up last, because the more pins you can put on a squad before you put a flamethrower, I said this just a moment ago, stack up pins on a squad, then put the flamethrower in last. However, the flamethrower misses, but it doesn't run out of fuel. And so immediately in the next turn, I fire the flamethrower again. Flamethrower hits and runs out of fuel. Does one casualty, I think, but doesn't cause the unit to flee. They pass their leadership test. And so, I shoot the officer, gives it another pin. I shoot the paras, gives it another pin. I shoot the rifle squad, gives it another pin. And the flamethrower, D3 pins from the flamethrower as well. And if you see here, this is the number of pins this squad has. That's a 6, that's a 4, that totals 10. Veteran squad has leadership 10. When you have the same number of pins as your leadership value, you flee. This does not happen very often. Fully pinning out a unit is rare, and it took my entire force 2 turns to do it. Because there's everything here, this big mob of infantry. I brought all the stuff I've sent over to the right hand side back over to the middle to do it as well. So I've stacked everything, and I've spent 2 entire... I have not shot... Basically, I haven't shot anything else, any of my units at any other unit, except for my howitzers. My howitzers have shot elsewhere, but other than that, everything is shot into this squad for 2 turns. That just shows what the body armor can do. A unit like the tank riders or the Soviet engineers with body armor are just tough. But I managed to get rid of them. Now, you may notice that there's starting to be a bit of a limit of my opponent's models on the table. So my howitzer that was in the corner took out the Dushka heavy machine gun that's in the tower. My engineer squad that was on this side that was too far away to go to the middle pushed up the flank and took out their heavy machine gun, heavy mortar, and again eventually came around towards the middle on the opponent's board edge middle, not the center of the board. And then all of this was pushing up. So if you see there's a 2 marking this building, that's my howitzer that's in this corner, firing this way, has zeroed in on this building and has wiped out everything in this building. And then all of these units have come around and has wiped out the heavy mortar, the commissar, and the little squads up here. And you notice up here as well, that squad, finally I managed to wipe them out as well. They went down again, but I managed to get enough hits on them that they failed enough cover saves to get wiped out. And so, at the end of this game, my opponent, playing like they were playing, as I alluded to earlier, has been tabled, completely wiped off of the board. I'm pretty happy with that. Pretty happy with that. This board really does play to the way that this army that I made plays. Lots of small squads, bundling up, sticking together, moving through that terrain. So I'm getting cover saves for the entire game. It's only this last turn that I'm pushing out of the cover that I lose that cover save. So I've been getting cover saves the whole game. My opponent's been getting cover saves most of the game as well. But getting into the cover and shooting out of it gave me the advantage. And moving up the flamethrowers actually didn't do as good in this game as they've done previously. But we did eventually see off the tank riders, and we did see off absolutely everything else eventually. Rainix says, had a quick look on their site. Most of the buildings look like they're from TT Combat, the Kibetsu farm set. Yeah, okay. Excuse me while I adjust my chair. And as soon as I sit back down, it just collapses in again. I'll adjust the camera instead. I have mentioned that this chair is on the way out. I should probably just buy a new chair. That would be the better option. or use my stall, because I had a stall as well. So, I've lost my first game, but I've won the second, and I've decisively won the third game here. And with 2 wins and a loss, that actually puts me in second place overall in this event. And so I won some vouchers. And with my vouchers, we can have a bit of a giggle at me buying Games Workshop products, but I bought some replacement paints. The reason why I'm buying Citadel paints and not like a reputable brand is because it's the only paints that the shop has. This is a very small shop, and they don't have the space or the inventory kind of cost to have multiple paint lines. So they've got a big stack of the Citadel paints, and then they do have a little standee of the Army Painter quick paint pens, or whatever they're called. But yeah, the paints they have is the Citadels. If I switch over to this view, I actually have them to hand. So this is my old dark green that I've been using forever. It's chunky and lumpy in there. Absolutely horrible. But that's been replaced with a nice rich dark green. So I can use this for all sorts of stuff. I can desaturate it to make it a military dark green. I can darken it or highlight it with various other paints. So this is going to be nice and versatile. I have, again, chunky and nasty sandy tan paint that I really like this one. But I've got a replacement there. That's just a nice light dirt sand color. And finally, this one is very important. So this is actually an old Games Workshop paint. This is from a long time ago when the pots looked like this. This is the blue that I've been painting my Empire of Japan models with. And you can see I've spent a lot of effort trying to make sure that this doesn't dry out. But it is drying out. But also, that's how much there is left. Look at that. That is like 1.5 millimeters worth of paint. There is nothing left in there. And so I've replaced it with this. Now this is a bit paler. It's about the right hue, but it's a bit paler. It's a bit more desaturated with white. I think I can make it work. If I can add, I might add a little bit of purple into this for a base coat, and then go at it unmixed for highlight, and I should be able to get a very similar effect. I don't ever care about getting exact paint matches between my units. I don't want all my vehicles to be exactly the same color, and so this is absolutely going to do the job of being close enough. So blue for my Japanese, that nice light blue. I've got a military dark green because I use so much military dark greens these days, and of course sandy tan because again I use so much of that. Squidfish says vouchers for the Pringles. You know what? I could use vouchers on the Pringles. I think what I'm actually going to do is the vouchers that I have left I'm going to spend on the British Automaton set. I'm going to get Bertie and the Automatons, and then after that, in a month's time, I'm going to get the Bonodorai platoon. Interestingly, the Bonodorai platoon comes with the character, whereas the British Automatons comes with the Mark IIs, but not the character, Beaver Bertie. Ratman says, reputable brand, lol. Yes, I use that word very specifically. The problem I have, there are two problems with Citadel paints. One is they're from Citadel. The other one is that they don't give any indication on the pigments that are in each one, and there's usually rather a lot. Depending on brand, there's very few mini paints that are single pigment. I don't know of any off the top of my head. You can get artist's paint that are single pigment, but you very rarely get miniature paints that are single pigment. But usually you're looking at 2 or 3 just to push the colour into what they want to sell it as. With Citadel paints, there's not 2 or 3. there's 5 to 10 pigments. And that becomes a problem, because this by itself is a really nice colour, but when you start mixing it, if you're adding a paint with 7 pigments to a paint with 8 pigments, well great, you've now got 15 pigments in that paint, and it muddies everything. And so Citilla paints do mix relatively well, but they very quickly fall apart, whereas other brands will mix much nicer from the word go. I actually have had a lot of success with the Revell Aquacolor. The dark brown is one of my favourite paints. A lot of the others I've had 3 different dark greens from them, and they've all behaved quite well. I've had sandy tan, and I've had ochre, which have both behaved very well. But I've got other brands as well. Scale Color, Pro Acryl. Army Painter often doesn't cover very well, but they mix very well. Army Painter mixes very well, and so if you use a different paint and you're mixing in Army Painter paint, that works surprisingly well, because you get the coverage from the other paint and just the nice mixability of the Army Painter. And Viejo, of course, everyone loves Viejo. You can't not love Viejo at the moment. All right, so we've had if I scroll back to the beginning, we can have a quick look over the games. I took a lot of pictures this time. So this board, absolutely hate it. I am going to try and fix it by building more terrain. So sandbags and barricades and burned out vehicles that we can put along the middle, that just breaks up that big open ground that you always end up with on this board. Again, this battle mat is really nice quality. I just hate that road is just parallel with the board edges. It makes it very difficult to play. I suffer every time I play on this board. I suffer. My opponent played pretty well, nice and aggressive, moving up these squads into the open ground, taking advantage of their bigger squads with regulars versus my smaller squads of regulars, and took out all of this on this side. Braved running across through in front of the howitzer, who then just missed. We had a big old scuffle on the left-hand side, which I sort of won, but not enough, because my winnings over here and his winnings over here had a fight in the middle, and he won that. In game 2, my opponent had a very nice early start trying to take some of the objectives, but I shot him off of them. And then just bundled in this wave of models that I could not deal with. There's just too much stuff here for me to deal with. So I had to act quickly. I had to secure the objectives as early as I can, fighting for them, fighting off the enemies that have got there first. I did take all 3 of them at certain points, although I lost one of them again. And then it was that. Where's the picture? Nope, I went past it. That one. Slightly gamey. This squad here, and then bent around so that I can get snap to action with the officer on here. Ran the officer away, ran this squad away. I've got 2 objectives. The opponent wave crashed over and took the other. So good battle plan from my opponent. Really nicely done. And yeah, I just got my units in the right place and pulled those objectives out of the middle at the right time. Third game, unfortunately, with my opponent playing like they were. I'm not going to say anything about them directly, but the way that I played, sticking together in this big blob, moving into the cover, shooting out of it, was very good. Moving just a few units over here worked out very well for me. This howitzer did zone in on the building and wiped out everything in there. The other howitzer, I think, killed the Dushka, but that was it. But they did something. They did more than nothing. And so overall, this went very well, especially as I managed to table my opponent in this game. And then, yeah, so that's just then showing my prizes. I won vouchers, but I chose to use them on... I used one of the vouchers on some paints because I needed these 3. Okay, I'm just going to take a moment and then we will do some painting. I am back, and I am significantly higher up, so I'm going to have to move that camera. I've moved over to a stool which is not falling apart like my chair is. There we go. Okay, now that we've done all of that, I'm going to see if I know how to change the title of the stream to Painting Fireflies. I think that worked. And now we can paint some fireflies with our remaining time. I was doing the bases, wasn't I? That's a nice easy thing to just slowly churn through. Camera position's not happy there. That's a bit better. We'll go with that. Clove just puts up a crazy emoji. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Speaking of paints that are drying up, my grey that I've been using for the cobblestone bases is... I mean, it's more of a gel than the consistency it should be, but it certainly hasn't completely dried up. I'm going to need to add some water to this one. I think I've got some boiled water somewhere. I mean, I have a kettle. I can make boiled water. It's fine. So how's everyone doing at home? Are you all surviving the terrible, terrible heat? Because I am. It's been fine. Because I know how to acclimatise. Yeah, I'm not sure about the... Oh, I moved the camera, so now I'm way out of frame. I think I may just have to put it there. Where is my focus? My focus is absolutely nonsense. There we go. I think from my previous American models, I've put the I've done them with grey base rims, just because it's I use grey for the cobblestones. I think I might go back and redo them all in dark green. That's not covering in the slightest. What's going on there? I think I've thinned down this paint too much, is what's going on there. I'll come back to it. I don't need to do the base rooms till later anyway, so it's fine. Andre says, why boiled water? That's a good question. So with miniature paints, even though it's a plastic, you can get mold, you can get like musty, nasty stuff growing in your paint. And the way to combat that is by being sterile with stuff. So on my wet palette, I have a jar of filtered and boiled water, and so I fill my wet palette with that, because my wet palette sits there for weeks and months in between being like dried out and cleaned. So I want to make sure that lasts as long as possible. But also, if you're putting water into a paint pot and you just take that straight out of the tap, and there is the tiniest single cell of some bacteria or mold or something, that's just going to sit in your paint and grow and ruin your paint. But if you use filtered water, you don't have any grit or aggregate, which can affect the paint physically. And if you use boiled water, then you don't have germs and mold. So clean water all the time. I also use the same, so that, even though it's mucky with paint, it was boiled before I put it in that jar. I'm not expecting hospital level cleanliness. I'm not going for perfect. I don't use hermetically sealed jars or anything like that. It's just a few little things here and there that point it in the right direction. The other thing I don't do, if Ratman is still in chat, the other thing I don't do is lick my brush and then stick my brush in the wet palette of my friends and make their wet palette go moldy. I mean, you may have noticed watching the stream that I don't lick my brushes anyway. Yeah, these guys are really coming together now. Not much more to do, which is good, because I've been doing them for a million years now. I assume we're going to have to put a half, like 50% of this stream into the Firefly playlist. Although I do realise that I've been talking about a bolt action event and now I'm painting conflict models, so there's that. I've gone so many different ways with painting these cobblestones. Like, I've gone from doing dry brushing to what I'm doing now, which is like essentially rebase coating them in grey. And I just can't decide which way looks better. Like, to an extent, it's just the most basic, simple cobblestone. It doesn't need to be super amazing. I'm not going to start wet blending on the cobblestones because it's just... Firstly, that would take a million years. Secondly, it's just not... It doesn't matter enough for that. These are wargaming models, not competition entry pieces. Sometimes you do have to pick out different shapes as well. There's parts where the texture roller kind of smushes around. and gives you like a single very large lump that's like 3 or 4 times the size of the rest of the cobblestones. So sometimes, like here, I'll paint a bit there and I'll paint a bit there, and it looks like it's 2 even though it is just 1. I mean, the whole thing looks very uneven, which is kind of what I was going for with the cobblestone. I did want it to look... I wanted it to look like a flat, well-kept road surface that was made out of uneven shaped cobblestones. Because that's what you get from a lot of European towns, especially in rural areas. You just get these messy... messy is not the right word. Very well kept, very well maintained roads that are made from cobblestones that are so old that they've been broken and reused and moved around, so they're not evenly spaced anymore. But the overall road surface is well looked after. It's one of those things that a lot of people don't necessarily realise, is just how much maintenance goes into things that you don't necessarily think would require maintenance, like a road surface. Like, I see jokes every now and again of like, this Roman road has been around for 2,000 years, but this modern road has potholes. And like, no, there is a road that has been maintained for 2,000 years, and here is a road that also kind of needs modern maintenance. But if that Roman road hadn't been constantly maintained throughout that entire 2,000 years, it would just disintegrate and fall apart. There's actually a Roman road, or section of a Roman road near where I used to live, that that was like that. There's been this section that's been partially, it has been maintained over the years, but partially it's been reconstructed. But then there's this whole chunk of several miles that just hasn't been looked after, and there are sections where you can see like the ridge, and you can kind of walk down the ridge of it, but there are sections where it's just gone. You cannot tell. Without digging down and excavating and finding the remnants of it, you would never know that there had been any kind of path or road there. Squidfist says, my whole life has been trying to minimize maintenance. My brother, I'm with you there. Just set everything to the longest lip. I don't have a garden, I have a patio because it is easier to maintain. And I still don't maintain it properly. Same with the roofing. I've got I actually need to do some more maintenance on the roof. Oh, here's the thing. Talking about maintenance, my old bike is now my former bike, and I have a new bike because that thing was a tank, and it lasted. Man, I used it solidly for 10 years. I was riding that a lot. It did well to last through my lack of doing the proper maintenance, but it has now been replaced. That is way too much water. What happened there? Well, I'm just going to have to deal with that. Squidfish says, between the farm, vehicles, and doing all that off-grid, everything is maintenance. Yeah. Yeah, you've just taken hard mode. When it comes to maintenance, you've chosen hard mode, and now you're complaining about it. Oliver, hi, how you doing? Just finished painting some spaceships. Been here enjoying the stream from the start. Yeah, good. Always welcome for you to just come along and listen. I do like the comments and being able to talk to people, but you don't have to every time. As long as you're there enjoying painting, that's good. Yeah, so now that I've got this chunk of paint thinned too much, it's not going down anywhere near as consistently. It's just kind of going down in this very watery way. But I think I got it. I think I got it. So we've got about half an hour left of stream, so plenty of time to get a decent chunk of these Fireflies done. If I can get, I'll finish off the grey, and if I can get the boots done, that'll be good. If I can get the boots and the webbing done, that'll be amazing. I'm not sure if we'll quite manage that, but we can try. We can certainly try. I've managed to get, in the last couple of weeks, I've been working on a wide variety of videos. From some of the feedback I've had from my viewers, it seems like the more discussional stuff is like that people want that as well as the painting. So I've got some discussions about proxy models. I've got some discussions about Rift dice. I'm considering just doing like a love letter to order dice, because I really like, that's one of the reasons why I got so heavily into bolt action, is because of how the Rift dice work, sorry, how the order dice work, and Conflict obviously uses order dice in the same way. And I've also got some painting stuff, painting videos. I've got the Grizzlies on the way that I got in the mystery box. I still have the Katyusha and the 222 on my desk over here. They're not done yet, unfortunately. So I can probably get those at some point. What I managed 3 of the 6, didn't I? It was the Autoblinder, the Karamato, and or was it just those 2? I got 6, didn't I? I can't even remember. It was so long ago. It was like a month ago. Squidfish says that's true, but either you got to do it or pay to have it done. So it looks like I'm doing it. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Some of the stuff that I need done is stuff that I personally don't know how to do. So it will be a case of getting contractor in to do some of that. Some of the stuff is just things that my neurodivergence just doesn't let me do. Physically, I'm quite capable of doing it. I just can't organise myself to do it, which is just an annoyance. But I do as much as I can. When I can do stuff, I do as much as I can, and I do generally keep on top of things. Nearly there. Just a couple more. So this guy doesn't have any cobblestones. Just has an oil stain, apparently. That must be the way that the wash has dried. That's odd. Couple bricks and some sand. That's all that's on that one. Squidfish says, got a box of metal Vestroyan showing up. That's fancy. Yeah, doing some old Imperial Guard out of full metal is... like, I've got a squad's worth of the Perry miniatures Gaunt's Ghosts. I've got at least one of each of the sculpts. And that's enough. That's enough. Because, good lord, those models... I've seen some of those. I've seen some of the regular Lasgunners go for 35 quid. 35 for a regular infantry guardsman with a Lasgun. Mental. Most of mine, however, are... oh no. Can anyone hear me? I have lost stream. If anyone in chat can say that they can hear me and see me still. What's going on? You're still streaming. You're still working. Squidfish says sounds good here. Okay, so it might. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to reset my playback. Okay. Okay. Andre also says yes, good. Okay, so people can hear me. People can see the stream. I can't see my own stream anymore. Something has gone skewiffy. So weirdly, the stream health says it's healthy, but it's just not giving me back. It's not giving me the playback. Okay, well, if you guys can still hear me, we can carry on. We've only got 25 minutes left, so I'll just have to suffer not being able to see what I'm doing. I've still got my OBS screen, so I can see what I'm doing in that regard. It's just I don't know what's coming through YouTube. So you'll just have to tell me if the video or the audio goes wonky. I mean, it was always wonky, but you know what I mean. I might be able to. If I can check from the other angle. Maybe? Nope. Nope, that doesn't work either. Never mind. Okay. We shall carry on as we are with no playback. I was going to do the boots next, wasn't I? So I need my lovely dark brown. Oh, this stool is significantly less comfortable than the broken chair that is actually not comfortable anymore. The stool is less comfortable than the chair used to be. I think that's how I have to say it. Squidfish says, let you know if anything shows on my end. Thank you very much. Yes. Yeah, do holler in chat if... I am actually getting something back. Nope. I said it too loud. I was just about to say it coming back in 144p. So it is the absolute minimum, but it then immediately crashed. Something's going on at YouTuber's end, so long as I'd rather the stream kept going and my playback failed than the other way around. All right, because as long as you guys can see me, then I'll just carry on, and that's fine. I'm drifting out of frame again, aren't I? So I think I spoke about this previously, but I will mention it again. Because the boots and the gas mask is not particularly exciting parts of the model, I'm highlighting them only once with the same dark brown that I originally painted them with. So other parts of the model will have base coat, a second paint as a little bit of a highlight, and then a wash and then a different paint as the final highlight. Or sometimes the same highlight again. But it's going to be layered in that kind of way. Whereas the boots are going to be one colour, wash, and then a highlight of that same colour. So it's much simpler and it's much quicker because it's part of the model that isn't that interesting. By highlighting it with the dark brown rather than a different paint, it means that it still looks dark and it becomes that kind of hidden away, shadowed part of the model, and so it draws the eye less. But then also, because I'm highlighting it with the same paint as under the wash, it still looks like it's highlighted, so it still fits with everything else. So it doesn't stand out as being like, oh yeah, you didn't highlight the uninteresting parts of the model. And so it fits in a way that it just doesn't attract attention. Of course, I'm also rushing through it, which means it's coming out relatively messily, which isn't an ideal way of doing things, but this is a batch paint and there's a lot of little bits of messy all over the squad. And I'm definitely going to have to come back and redo some of the characters, which is what I said that from the very beginning that I was going to. I'm going to get it to the point where I can finish and varnish the regular infantry, the submachine gun Fireflies, the flamethrowers, the BARs, and put them aside, and then just the 5 characters, so the 3 platoon leaders and the 2 Roberta Wells, the Doctors Wellses, and then I'll just focus on just those 5 models, probably individually actually, just one at a time, go through them and fix up the details to make them a little nicer. They are still wargaming models, they don't have to be fantastic, but I do want them to be a little nicer than the messy regular troops, the scruffy riffraff that they are. I mean, they're Americans. I was doing the gloves the same way. Well, I am now. Did you get an ad? Is that what this is? No way. Clove, I'm back. Had to reset 3 or 4 times because I keep getting 3 ads. No. No. I have ads set. Where's my details? So you shouldn't have had an ad at that point during the middle of the stream. Oh, actually, Clove, did you leave the stream? Because I've got it set so that you only should get an ad at the very, like when you join at the beginning of the stream or when you join the stream. It's not. It shouldn't. You shouldn't be playing ads as you're watching. But if you left the stream and came back, it might. Oh God, scam ads as well. Oh man. I have had a few. Just as I've been watching stuff, I've had a few of those. There's one that's constantly doing an AI like face poser of various celebrities and royalty. Even there was I can't remember who it was now. The Swedish. But yeah, various footballers and actors and stuff saying the same script in each of them, and it's like, this is blatantly a scam. How do I report it? It's mental how that is so prevalent now. Clove says yes, he did leave. Okay, that's probably, you shouldn't have. So as long as you stick with the stream, you shouldn't have any more until the very end, like after I've closed this, after I end the stream. Squidfish says it became a TV again, so I guess it's time to reinvent the internet. Yeah. Don't get me started. I'll just get more and more annoyed and angry about the situation. Or maybe you want that. Maybe you want just this rage stream. Andre says, can't help here on premium, no ads. Ew. Yuck. That's even worse. Rainick says it was a while ago, but I had an ad from Keir Starmer advertising his great investment opportunity. Yeah, it's the investment ones. Yeah, that's probably from the same scam company that I've been seeing. Squidfish says an ED-SKaR drink rant would be hype. Well, unfortunately for you, I am not Mordy and Glory, so we will not be descending to those depths. No, Mordy and Glory has his style, and it's fine. And I have my style, and my style does not involve screaming and getting super angry about stuff. The thing is, I will happily watch a lot of content along those lines, so long as it's reasonable. Like, if people get passionate about stuff, like, that's what people like. But for me, if I'm watching someone get really passionate about it, it has to be well reasoned. I had a discussion with someone very recently, actually, someone I very much respect, and I said that I'm going to try and remember exactly how I said it. The emotion that you feel when as a response to something should drive you, but it should not aim you. So when something happens, you should emotionally be invested in, like, if you are emotionally responding to that emotion should be used to drive you to fix that situation, to help that situation. But your emotions shouldn't dictate how you fix that situation or how you respond. You should use your brain and think, what is the best way to do this? What is the most kind of, what's going to give me the best outcome? What's going to actually help? So with your brain aiming you in the right direction, and your heart, in a way, kind of your brain aiming you and your heart driving you, that's how things should be. But that's not how things often are. People are often, they get emotional and then they just follow their emotions without thinking. Or worse, they follow someone else's emotions without thinking. Andre says it was my wife, not me. What was? Oh, YouTube Premium. Yeah, okay. I'll put you in the purgatory doghouse for a day rather than a week. Squidfish says no beef. Yeah, I will discuss sensitive topics. I will go into that kind of thing, but it will not be as a ragey beef kind of thing. It will be as a reasoned, here is my thoughts on the matter, here is my my suggestions for how we respond to it. That's how I frame things. I think probably the video that I've done that the heaviest was the response to what's his name? The YouTuber who said, oh, someone has to play as the bad guys, and that's why I don't play with 1939 to 1945 German models. Midwinter Minis, yeah. So I responded to that, and I responded essentially along the lines of, well, actually, historical wargamers understand the history and do not follow it. We do not have the ideology of the models that we paint, mostly. Whereas a fictional wargamer does not always, often does, but does not always have that context, and so in my personal experience and the experience of many other people, fictional war games and fictional computer games tend to have a worse community in that regard than a historical game does. There are obviously exceptions to that. There are obviously individuals and also games that are exceptions to that in both directions, but generally speaking, that is a trend that I have noticed. Clove says, what percentage of money do you get from ads? I do contents but haven't reached sub count. So on average, every time I stream, I get less than 1 penny. And on my videos, on average, I'm getting about 10 pence. So over the course of a year, I have enough to buy myself like a pack of crisps. Clove says, I have a hyperfixation on things. Do not get a hyperfixation on your YouTube analytics. Straight up right now, I love the content that you're making, Clove, but do not get hyperfixated on the YouTube analytics for your content. It will hurt you. It has hurt so many people before. I've been through it. I didn't suffer as badly as others, but I went through it, and it kind of was definitely a down point for me. And I just had to make the decision that I am not pushing YouTube to be my job. I am here. This is my hobby. It's not even my main hobby, because the videos that I make is just me talking about the other things I do for my, like, painting is my main hobby. Therefore, I make videos about painting. The videos are a secondary hobby. So for me, in that way, I just needed to step back and stop caring about how many views a video is getting, what time of day the views are coming in, how do I adjust the thumbnail. Like, no, just make what I want to make, put it out there, and if it does badly, which it usually does, it just doesn't matter. Squidfish says, old midwinter, yeah, like my Tyranids to eat everything. That's a disconnect. Tyranids? Tyranids. I don't know when we were talking about Tyranids. I'm drifting out of frame again. I'm going to just move my camera to there. Clove says, Midwinter Minis is an American communist liberal. He is none of those things. He is not American, he is not communist, and he is arguably liberal, but I don't think he's liberal. He's none of those things. Can imagine how many censored he must have up his sleeve. The thing is, I'd actually stopped watching him long before that particular video, because he's just making inappropriate jokes constantly, and when he was called out on it, he just said, yeah, but people find it funny. And yeah, that's true, people do find it funny. I don't, so I stopped watching. It's like, if he wants to do that kind of content, that's his choice. I'm not going to tell him to I'm not going to tell him to make videos the way I make my videos, because I make videos the way I make my videos. He can do his thing, and that's fine. And I just wasn't. I don't enjoy them, so I'm not going to watch them, and that's it. You read it wrong. I read a lot of things wrong. Nearly there with the boots. What are we at? We're nearly at 9 o'clock. So I will finish up the boots. We didn't get onto the webbing. I suspected we wouldn't. I hoped we would get into the webbing, but we did not. read it wrong. That's a full name. Like I named his mindset. Yeah, but he's not. He's not that though. Too much politics fries your brain. Yeah. Yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? Funny you should mention that. Are those meant to be gators? I think they are. So this is one of the character models, so I'm going to come back. He's got these wraps around the front of his boots. They're kind of like gators, but they're not a pattern that I recognize. They're not the usual American ones. So I'm going to assume that they're gators, but I'm not going to paint them today. I'm going to paint... because this is a character, I'm going to finish up everything else and I'm going to come back to the characters. Yudi says, and we're back to our scheduled programming. Yes. Fireflies, it's been too long. It has. We've done well with the Fireflies over the last 16 years that we've been painting them. What's that meme that's going around? It's fine to spend 2 hours painting Fireflies. Those 10 years will be the best millennia of your life. I have painted quite a lot of Americans recently. So I painted some vehicles, some light Tesla vehicles and a Walker. And I've also very nearly, but not quite, got the Fireflies done. We've got to get this done in the next stream, right? We've got the tan and the green. Is that it? We should finish this next stream, I think. Or at least the regular ones. We'll have to come back to the character ones. But I think next stream we'll have the 19 regulars that I've got here done. Rainick says, are you sure it's not a puttee? No, it's not. So a puttee is a single continuous wrap around the leg, whereas this is only actually on the front. So I'm going to get you a nice close-up so we can nerd out about ankle covers. Do I have a puttee nearby? Possibly, but I'm not going to bother trying to find one. So, can you see there? So these might look like a winding of a puttee if you see those 3 lines, but if you look closely, they're actually buckles. And the back behind them is just continuous underneath those 3 straps. So that's just a knee-high boot. And then the front, there is this separate panel here. So it's probably not... Well, it's definitely not puttees. It's probably not a gaiter in the traditional sense. I think that's armor. Like, is it called greaves on a leg? It's like shin armor. And don't look at the mold line. We'll look at this leg. Yeah. So if you look at the back, I've got it all painted up in brown, but I need to come back and do the straps in whatever color I decide to do the straps in. And we've got 3 buckles, and then we've got this whole section on the front. But yeah, can you see there? That is a wrinkle in fabric. So it's not an armor panel. That's fabric. So I think it's the closest thing. I don't know what these are. The closest I can think of is gaiters, but it's not the normal type of gaiters. If you had a knee-high boot that was waterproof up to this point, then yeah, this actually makes sense, because the whole point of puttees or gaiters or anything along those lines is that it covers the laces tightly so that it makes the boot more waterproof. And so, nope, it's not that, because you can actually see the lacing of the boot here. So to make it waterproof, you'd actually have to have it covering down here. So it's not armor, because it's clearly made of fabric. It's definitely not puttees, and it's not gaiters either. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Shin pads, says Rainick. Greaves, says Andre. I'm just going to put them aside. I'm going to put them down, put them away, and we're going to move on. We'll come back to that. We will nuke that bridge from orbit when we come to it. I need some more brown on my wet mat. Squidfish says another 3 streams and it'll be all wrapped up. Yeah, we're getting there. And Yuli says, give it until the new starters drop. I am not going to finish this, these Americans, before the automatons come out. Have the automatons actually come out? Because if they've come out, then I will be buying them this weekend, because I have a voucher for the local shop that I won, as we spoke about earlier today. And so I'm getting the automatons with that. I actually have 2 vouchers. I keep getting vouchers faster than I can spend them, because I'm just so good. I'm just so good at gaming that I keep winning prizes. Rainick says, odd question, is the Conflict 47 thing still on for this Sunday? It is. For anyone in the Milton Keynes area, we will be running just a regular, nice and easy, casual event. 1,500 points, no characters permitted, because not all of the factions have their characters yet. We would like you... we don't have an official booking for it. Oh yeah, you're just asking about booking. So we don't have an official booking for it. But if you can send me a message on either the Facebook group or the Discord, so that I can put your name on the list, and we're going to book tables based on our list rather than going through the proper booking. And the reason why we're doing that is that's going to reduce the cost, because we don't have to pay for the licensing on the booking system. But yeah, please do show up. We'd like as many as possible. Andre says leg warmers. Maybe it's just cold. Maybe the Fireflies are just zooming around up in the sky and they're just cold. Leg warmers. Maybe it is just leg warmers. That would be... Oh, right. This is the one this is the sample, and we've already done the boot sample. Automated platoon update will be released on this Friday. That's cool. Looking forward to that. People who bought the mystery box already received the updated automatons and American pre-release plastic 50 cal tin. Oh, some people got the bolt action plastic sprue for the heavy weapons. That's cool. Annoyingly, that sprue has 2 1919s and then 1 M2, and I just want 3 M2s. Because I've got 1919s. I've got a dozen 1919s in bits. Like, I've got 3D printed ones as well that I've never used. Hey, hang on. That's an M2. I lied. I've got 1919s somewhere. But I want some proper Warlord Games M2 teams. So I'm going to get that sprue, but I'm not going to buy 3 of the sprue just so I can have 3 heavies. I'll probably just buy it once. And then... because I've already got 2 and I want to replace them with official ones, but I'll just have one of them then. There we go, coming along very nicely. Just the tan for all the webbing and the green for the uniform, and we're done. Nice. Rainick, yes, you can borrow a Vogelspinner. Remind me close to the weekend so that I pack it. I don't have it painted. It won't. I'm probably going to paint the Vogelspinner alongside the Stahltruppen when I do them on stream, but at the moment it's not painted. Did I get all the? I think I got all the chat. But as we are past 9 o'clock, we shall finish up the stream. So if anyone has any final questions, please do post them now. We did talk about some games that I've played at the beginning of the stream, and we've done a bit of painting on the Fireflies as well. So do ask about any of that or anything else that's upcoming as well. Clove says, how much does the new plastic heavy weapons team for the Americans cost? I have no idea. Check the German sprue cost, because it's probably... Not definitely, but it's probably the same price as whatever the German and the Soviet, because the Soviets have theirs as well, don't they? So I will have a stream next week. It will almost certainly be back on the Monday, like normal. I might have another event, but I don't think I want to do 2 event streams back to back. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably do just painting Fireflies next week, and then I'll do the event on live stream the week after. And as for videos, I've got a lot of, like, in the last week or so, last week and a half, I've been recording a lot of videos, and a lot of different videos. I mentioned that I've asked the community generally what people want to see from me, whether they want to see more painting or more discussion, and people don't really mind, but there's definitely people who want both. So I've got some painting videos coming, and I've got some discussion videos coming. I think the one that's the closest to being done is I've got a discussion about some tactics that I use with Rift dice and how to cycle through Rift dice. So that's probably going to be my video this week, and then the stream will be the Fireflies. I've got plenty of options. I'll try and get a painting video for the week after, and then we'll do the stream. The stream after will be the conflict event. Andre says, see you next time. Wish me luck with the Band of Brothers box. Clove asked what it is. That's the Band of Brothers BOB. It's the 12 American and German infantry and half track for Americans and Germans. Does that come with the ruined farmhouse as well? I've got it open. It does. One of the other videos, one of my build and paint videos that I've got in the works is both the conflict and bolt action terrain set. So it's the ruined farmhouse that comes in the Band of Brothers box is that ruined farmhouse that's the bolt action mass terrain that everyone gets, and then the wall sections is the Conflict 47 equivalent, and I'm going to mash those into one video so that I can just put that out. That's underway, but it's a little ways out. Yudi says the Fireflies are looking good. Thank you very much. They're a good kit. I have genuinely enjoyed painting them along. I've definitely enjoyed I didn't do much in the way of conversions. I did a bit of basing and I did a couple of arm cuts, but yeah, they work really well. All right, so thank you very much to everyone for popping past. It's been a nice, longer, very warm session that we've had today. So I hope you're all keeping hydrated at home. But with all of that said and all of that done, and the painting halfway done, very nearly, we're closing in on being done with them. But for now, I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and thank you very much for watching.